Muslim population lay prostrate at its feet. The only way to determine if this technologically advanced civilization is indeed the Dajjal, described by the Messenger of Allah, or not, is to compare the hadiths relating to it to the actual scenario of this civilization.
The Messenger of Allah has said, there will be no greater event from the creation of man to the last day than the Dajjal. To be regarded as the most important event in the history of mankind is surely no small thing. During this long stretch of time, mankind was all but wiped out by the deluge in Noah's time. In the Kurukshetra described in Mahabharata, almost 10 million human beings lost their lives. And recently, in the tsunami, more than 400,000 people were killed. Disasters of such magnitude have hit mankind over the extended period, time and again. However, this one event of the Dajjal's appearance has been rated as the gravest situation of all. What possible threat could this one situation pose that made the Messenger of Allah seek refuge from? To get the reason for this, we have first to understand the meaning of the word Dajjal. In true sense, it is not a name, it is the descriptive pronoun for a subject. The word Dajjal denotes a dazzling impostor, something quite attractive to look at, but in reality is ugly inside. The technical advances of the Dajjal, as well as its different forms, as in democracy, monarchy, dictatorship, communism, dazzle the eye and the mind. As a result, the entire world has fallen prey to its charms, chased its rainbow in hope of finding peace and happiness with the implementation of its doctrines. But exactly the opposite is the reality of most areas under the rule of the different isms prescribed by the Dajjal. They are rife with hunger, turmoil, war and bloodshed, injustice and poverty. The oppressed of the world urge for peace, peace, but whither peace? Instead of it, there is oppression of the weak by the mighty, triumph of wrong over right, injustice on the ruled by the rulers, and so forth. The earth's soil is wet with the blood of the innocent and imbecile. In 2 world wars alone, this civilization has been responsible for the deaths of over 140 million human beings. Another 20 million have been lost to different wars and skirmishes ever since. Most recently, this civilization has taken the lives of 1 million people. The number of injured and disabled are double of the deceased. The cry for peace has never been louder, yet to no avail. Most statistics reveal that the only development that is taking place is in the field of science and technology. In the moral sense, mankind is most definitely falling at a fast pace. Crimes of all types are rapidly on the rise all over the world. There is not one country where the crime rate is steadily going down. Where will all this end? The consequences of such unabated downgrade leaves the thinking mind baffled. To top all this is the fearsome threat of the nuclear weapon. The Dajjal's atomic bomb is capable of rendering the earth into pieces in minutes. it is because of these destructive qualities that the Messenger of Allah has termed the Dajjal as a giant. This perilous situation is proof of the Judeo-Christian technological civilization being the deceiving, lying impostor prophesied by the Messenger of Allah so many centuries ago.
This video footage is enough to make us realize how dangerous the situation of the Dajjal actually is. Therefore, to warn his people of the future about this fearsome entity, the Messenger of Allah left a series of allegorical references describing its appearance and character. It would have been impossible otherwise to make them understand a civilization based on such advanced technology. Is it not ironical that we, the people 1400 years later, also accept the allegorical description to be the actual meaning and await a giant of such proportions? That this giant is not anything else than the Judeo-Christian civilization is what this video will prove, inshallah. Let us study the Messenger of Allah's hadiths regarding this one by one.
To help his people understand the speed of the Dajjal, the Messenger of Allah has said, it will be very fast, like the clouds driven by the winds. If the Dajjal were indeed a giant, what would be the need to compare it to the clouds? In fact, it is because it is no giant that it has been compared as the clouds. It will go where it wills, when it wills. When an airplane takes to the skies, it resembles a wind-driven cloud more than anything else. For this reason, the Messenger of Allah used the analogy of a wind-driven cloud to make his Sahabis, his companions, understand the speed with which the Dajjal would travel. For his companions to understand the concept of an airplane flying in the skies was next to impossible. Therefore, he did so through an allegorical reference. Is it still logical to deny that the Judeo-Christian civilization is not the Dajjal described? In another hadith, the Dajjal will travel around the world in as much time as needed to say the Jummah prayers. The typical concept about the Dajjal is that of a huge giant whose mount has one foot in the east and the other in the west. If that were indeed true, it would take just about a minute to move around the world one time. It would most definitely not take 90 to 95 minutes. On the other hand, if we accept the Judeo-Christian civilization as the Dajjal, this becomes true because an artificial satellite placed in orbit around the world takes about 90 to 95 minutes to complete an orbit, more or less the same time as is needed to prepare for Jummah and attend it. The example cited by the Messenger of Allah regarding the Dajjal's speed is exactly matched by that of the satellite created by the Judeo-Christian civilization. Is it still justified to reject that the Judeo-Christian civilization is the Dajjal? Let us present another example to clear this. 2 centuries back, when Jules Verne wrote his famous book Around the World in 80 Days, it was the subject of immense speculation as to how it was possible to travel around the world in only 80 days. Yet, in only 100 years, it was a reality, and today it takes less than 80 hours. Can we imagine then what a fantastic idea it would have been to illiterate Arabs of 1400 years ago to hear that it would take only 90 minutes to go around the world once? This allegory was used by the Messenger of Allah to convey the speed and might of the Dajjal to his companions. In one hadith, the Messenger of Allah has said, the Dajjal will bring under its subjugation all the land and waters of the world within its might, strength and influence. Its domination of the world will be as uninterrupted as the skin on an animal's back. What is in total control of the world today? The answer to this is undoubtedly the Judeo-Christian civilization. There is no space on this earth outside the reach and influence of this civilization, and where its will cannot be imposed. There again, the Messenger of Allah has used the allegory of the skin on an animal's back to stress on the absolute power and influence of the Dajjal all over the world. This in turn is the mirror image of the Judeo-Christian civilization today. In the history of mankind, no other civilization or culture till now has been able to bring the entire world within its fold save this Judeo-Christian civilization. Note how the prophecies of the Messenger of Allah come true to the letter. Also, it leaves no doubt that it is no giant, rather the Judeo-Christian civilization, which in fact is the Dajjal. To stress on the Dajjal's size, strength and influence, the Messenger of Allah has often described the Dajjal in different manners. For example, in one hadith he says, the difference between the 2 years of the Dajjal's mount will be 70 hands. In other, he says, the Dajjal's mount will have 1 foot in the east and the other in the west. For those who have taken the allegorical references of a one-eyed giant astride a gigantic mount quite literally, surely these 2 hadiths are sufficient to correct their interpretation. In the Arabic language, 70 stands for countless or too many to count. Let us imagine a mount or a horse with 70 meaning thousands of feet distance between its 2 ears, which has 1 foot in the east and the other in the west. Is such an animal truly feasible? Where is the space for such an animal to move in this small earth? Interestingly, in the first hadith, the Messenger of Allah has mentioned the ear, that is, the organ of hearing. What is the meaning of this hadith, if not that the Dajjal will in a moment hear what is said on the other side of the world? Its parallel today is the radio and the telephone, inventions again of the Judeo-Christian civilization. It enables the listener to hear from thousands of miles away. Is it still logical to claim that the Dajjal will emerge as a giant on a gigantic horse? In the other hadith, the Messenger of Allah states that the Dajjal's mount will have 1 foot in the east and the other in the west. This again is an allegorical reference to the worldwide application of the scientific technology of the Dajjal. This scientific technology is the Dajjal's mount that will take it to the farthest corner of the world. This has 1 foot in the east and the other in the west. The numerous dazzling inventions of this civilization has enveloped the world like the skin on the back of an animal. This is what the Messenger of Allah tried to make his companions understand through series of allegorical references. To ensure that his ummah, his people of the future,